Welcome to this week's edition of Crypto Trader, the world's first televised cryptocurrency investment show and still the world's only televised cryptocurrency investment show. We've had another record week on the markets with the market cap reaching $133 billion. Joining me in the studio to help make sense of the movements in this week's market is Matt Owen, a consultant at Paper Plane Ventures and a huge crypto enthusiast. Matt, welcome to the studio. A massive week on the markets, Bitcoin running again. What do you make of all this moving?
Well, good evening, Ran. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, Bitcoin over the last few days has been on an absolute flyer. It's reached an all-time high of just about $4,400, and yeah, it seems like it's only on the upward trajectory. So
Bitcoin moving the entire market up, but the other coins haven't rallied as much as they should have, and we were still waiting for this rally in Ethereum.
I think when Bitcoin rallies, the other coins take a bit of time to catch up, and sometimes trade a bit down while Bitcoin is on a bull rally. But in time, over the next few days, I'm sure the alts will catch up, and there will be some good gains to be had.
So you're calling a run in the altcoins coming up soon?
I am, yes.
Great. What do you make of the Bitcoin Cash coin, the one that came off the Bitcoin split? Under $300, struggling a little bit.
It's because of the fork that happened as a result of them changing the rules essentially of their coin. There was a split, and I'm not exactly hugely bullish of Bitcoin Cash, but I think it does serve a purpose in the market.
So it's going to be like the cash coin, and Bitcoin's going to be like the store of value, like the gold.
Exactly. So they've enhanced the block size, which enables it to have more transactions per minute. And so it can handle more transactions, and as a result, it's a more transactable coin as opposed to Bitcoin, which is it's moved towards a store of value and more like a digital gold.
But if you read Satoshi's white paper when he launched Bitcoin, Bitcoin was never supposed to be a gold. It was never supposed to be a commodity. Bitcoin was always supposed to be transactive. So now we've got the split in the chain, and one is a transactive currency, and the other one is become a store of gold. Surely the one that should have more value is the one that is the transactive one.
Well, in the white paper, he also specified that it's going to be a community-driven project. And as Bitcoin has developed over the years, all of the fundamentals behind it are purely community-driven. And now the community is feeling that this is the best use case at the moment for Bitcoin. So as a result, that it's taken on that role in the cryptocurrency market.
Great, so enough about Bitcoin Cash. Some other coins that have really made the news this week. We had Vinny Lingham on our show last week. When we had him on our show, the Civic token was trading at just over 30 cents. It doubled.
Yeah, it's been a great week for Civic. It's trading at over 60 cents now, and it's an exciting platform, and it gives people almost the power to control their digital identity, and that's the roadmap for Civic. So it's a very exciting project, and I think it's going to continue to grow and realize gains in the coming months and years.
We are big Vinny Lingham fans on this station and on this show, and we look forward to the amazing things that Vinny's going to do. I also noticed another coin which made a huge run this week, and that was the Neo coin. What do you know about this Neo token?
So the Neo token has been around for just almost a year now, but it's recently had a huge rally, and this is a result. So it's essentially at the same sort of platform as Ethereum, which is a platform on which you can build smart contracts. And over the past few weeks, it's had an absolute terror and gone to over $50 from under $5. Now, it's the main draw on the Neo network is that it's completely scalable. It's more scalable than Ethereum at the moment, and you can also code on it in normal conventional languages as opposed to the Solidity language that you need to code in with regards to the Ethereum network.
So people are calling this the Ethereum of China, or the Chinese-backed Ethereum. It's had a hell of a run. Like you say, it went from 5. I saw it trading at 50. That's 10 times return in the last 2 weeks. Come on, surely you don't think that 10 times return is justified?
It's hard to say. I mean, this is a completely new asset class, and it's completely driven by supply and demand. So you can't compare it back to a normal investment, and that's the exciting thing about these cryptocurrencies is that there may not be some sort of fundamental value behind it, but it's driven purely by a supply and demand play. And because the supply is limited and the demand is only increasing, the value can only really increase.
But surely, at the end of the day, everything's going to come down to equilibrium, and the coins that have fundamental value are the coins that are going to succeed. We can't argue that.
I do believe that, yes, because each coin needs to have a utility value, and that's the main driver of demand when it comes to cryptocurrencies.
Any other coins that you've been watching? Anything that you've got in your bag that you've been watching?
The one thing that's been making waves lately is the IOTA coin, which is essentially they've created a new protocol which is different to blockchain called the Tangle protocol. And it's essentially a very low cost and low transaction fees. And the whole driving force behind it is that it should be able to transact with regards to the Internet of Things.
Okay, great. And Ripple, have you been watching the Ripple token? This is one of those tokens that I've been watching. It launched at 1 cent or just under 1 cent, and it's trading today at 16 cents. It did go up to about 40 cents at one point.
Yes, I've been watching Ripple earlier this year. I did invest quite a bit earlier on in the year when it was making a lot of was getting on board with a lot of different banks to kind of transact with. And it was making some huge waves and made some great gains. It's been a bit quiet of late, but over the last couple of days, they've just confirmed certain partnerships in China. So it's exciting. I think it's got a lot of room to grow, and I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Well, that's fantastic. Coming up next on our show, we've got the CEO of Ripple coming to talk to us about what Ripple is actually doing. Today, in a special feature, we have Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, joining us from the office in San Francisco. Brad, thank you for joining us on our show. There's been a lot of talk about the Ripple token. It's made waves in the market. We're trying to understand, what does Ripple as a company actually do?
Ron, thanks for having me. Our token is actually called XRP. Ripple as a company is selling blockchain technology to banks to enable banks to do real-time settlement between those transactions. Today, when you're transacting between different countries through a bank, it can take anywhere from 3 to 5 days to settle that transaction such that you can have those funds available. What Ripple's technology allows to happen is that you can have real-time access between banks. We make banks interoperable, even cross-border, so that you can accelerate the engine of commerce really on a global scale.
So explain the use case for the XRP token. Where does the XRP token feature in all of this?
One of the key things that banks have to solve for is liquidity. Quite simply, it's having cash available at another bank in order to settle a transaction. We use XRP as a way to fund liquidity positions far more quickly than what is possible today unless you pre-fund. So today, banks will pre-fund an account in another country in another currency. If I'm in yen, I would fund an account in yen, and then I could access those yen. Well, that requires me as a bank to park dormant capital in that other country, in that other currency. Using a digital asset, in real time, you can push a payment, and because of the market makers and exchanges making markets between yen and XRP, our digital token, you can then push a payment without pre-funding accounts and still do that in real time, which is faster and far more reliable than what's possible today.
So if I understand this correctly, you've got this token which is almost serving as a universal currency that banks can buy to settle one another. Is that correct?
Yeah, simplistically, it really is enabling banks, other financial institutions, even money services business, payment service providers, even MoneyGrams or Ant Financial or Paytm. They all could use a digital asset like XRP to fund real-time transactions. One of the things that I believe very strongly is that the most valuable digital assets will be those that have a real use case. They're solving a real problem. And XRP has been the fastest, most efficient way for payments to be settled cross-border. And we think as this use case grows, we'll continue to see more and more demand for our digital asset.
So in the form of a practical example, if I'm in South Africa and I want to send 100 Rand to somebody in the United States, the bank would use the 100 Rand to buy XRP and then trade the XRP back into US dollars. Is that right?
That's correct. The bank wouldn't necessarily see that all themselves, and that could be we want to simplify this as much as possible for banks and their customers. And so the idea is really what the bank might see is simply a conversion rate between Rand and USD. The plumbing that's happening underneath is converting as exactly as you described. You're going from Rand to XRP, XRP across the digital rail, if you will, and then settling again from XRP back to USD. All of that can happen in seconds.
Certainly sounds like a genius concept with an amazing use case. When people buy the XRP, so if I'm a holder of XRP today, is the potential customer for my XRP actually a bank?
Well, I think there's lots of people who are interested in what is happening with XRP. You have investors who are buying XRP. Ultimately, as I said before, I think the most successful digital assets, and I think this applies broadly, are those with a clear use case, such that as that use case grows, there'll be more and more demand for that. We do think as business for Ripple grows, more and more demand will come from financial institutions and come from real payment flows. XRP settles transactions in seconds. We can do up to 1,500 transactions per second. This compares to the average Bitcoin transaction. Last I looked, the average transaction time is around 10 hours and can do maybe 5 transactions per second. I know there obviously the Bitcoin community is working on things to solve there, but Ripple's approach has been very much let's solve a very specific problem for a very specific customer that is a huge problem. We're talking about $25 trillion of cross-border flows globally.
Brad, last question before we go. There's been a lot of criticism for the Ripple token saying that it's not part of the decentralization, that it's actually owned by the banks. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's certainly not owned by the banks. The banks are our customers, and we Ripple own a lot of XRP. A lot of investors own XRP. We're solving a problem for banks, but it is certainly a very decentralized ledger. We have scores of different validators that are confirming transactions across the ledger. There's a lot of technical reasons why I could go into it's decentralized, but simplistically, it is very much decentralized. It is certainly not owned by the banks. We're a Silicon Valley privately owned company. We sell software to banks, and we think that as banks scale that solution, it's going to only increase the demand and interest in XRP.
Brad, we're certainly very excited at what Ripple's doing, and we'll keep watching the XRP token. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming on our show. So with the crypto markets at all-time high, there must be news moving this market. Joining me to help make sense of the news is David Namdar from Galaxy Investment Partners. David, thanks for coming on the show. Crypto markets at all-time high, Bitcoin at all-time high. What is the news on the markets?
Hey Ran, thanks for having me. So I think what we're really seeing is that after all the uncertainty leading into the fork, there was a lot of money waiting on the sidelines to come into Bitcoin specifically, and that's really what's been pushing the price higher here. As we're up 50% in the last 2 weeks. What I've been surprised by actually, Bitcoin Cash, I was expecting to drop to $50 to $100 levels pretty quickly. Where it is today at 300, I think it's a pretty good risk reward. If it falls anywhere from here, I'll definitely be a buyer as more investors start to understand it and more miners start to follow it. Ether has been surprising as well. I've been expecting a quick catch-up trade for it to get back to about the 0.1 levels versus Bitcoin, which would be about a little over $400 today.
So another person expecting an Ether rally. Are you expecting that the Ether rally will cause an altcoin rally, or is it just going to be an Ether rally?
We're seeing a ton of money flowing into the space, and as that initially goes into Bitcoin and Ether, those are really the funding currencies for this whole digital asset ecosystem. So it won't be long before a lot of that then flows into all the altcoins as well.
In the altcoins, which of the altcoins have been making the news headlines? What altcoins are you guys actually watching out there?
So we're doing a ton of investing across the space. A couple of names I like recently, Stocks, Funfair, a handful of others. So Stocks, it's the newest decentralized prediction platform competing with the likes of Augur and Gnosis. It's built by the team behind invest.com. They did a conservative raise about 30 million, and it's still relatively low market cap, around 50 million. I'm expecting some good results out of them as they release the tech and start to make a number of announcements.
So that's a market capitalization of about $54 million. Certainly sounds exciting. Fun, that's the gambling and gaming token, is that right?
Gambling and gaming, I think, really has been one of the most exciting use cases of blockchain tech, and really one among the first things that stand out as good examples for it. So Funfair, it's led by an incredible CEO, Jez San. They're building really the best and the fastest and most scalable blockchain-based gambling tech. I think it's both, they market it as fast, fun, and fair. And I think that as they come out over the next 6 to 12 months and start to execute on their roadmap, we're going to see some exciting things there.
I read somewhere that Coinbase finally finished their capital raise, or finally raised their capital round. Do you know anything about the raise and the valuation they did it on?
So I've been following the exchange space very closely. Coinbase raised $100 million at a $1.6 billion valuation. I'm seeing a number of exchanges raising in that same $1 to $2 billion market cap range. What we're really seeing is that after the incredible run we've had in the markets over the last 6 months, the exchanges have been one of the largest benefactors there. And to a certain extent, they've been doing everything they can to ramp up their operations to meet the increased investor demand. I'm also expecting to start to see some consolidation in the exchange space. And then another interesting theme I've been paying a lot of attention to is around decentralized exchanges. We're seeing a handful of them: Omega One, 0x, Swap, Kyber Networks, and probably about a dozen others that are coming online. And that's really going to provide a big boost to the whole ecosystem, as it allows investors to trade through multiple exchanges at once, accessing better liquidity, and doing it without dealing with the centralized counterparty risk of any single exchange.
So I guess what we're saying is the more people trade, the more the exchanges are worth, and therefore $1.4 billion may not be such a crazy valuation. David, before I let you go, give us one token that you want us to watch this week, and we're going to call you back next week to make sure that that token's gone up. What's your favorite token for the week?
I guess I would go with BINANCE. It's an exchange token out of China. I've started to see a decent move already. They're doing some interesting partnerships with Neos and starting to add a lot of other altcoins to it as well.
David, thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to call you on your call for finance next week. ICOs are the thing that every investor must be talking about now. Joining me in the studio from Silicon Valley is Stan Miroshnik. He's the CEO and the MD of the Elements Group. We're going to be taking a closer look at the movements in ICOs this year. Stan, thank you for coming on the show. There's been a report published by Goldman Sachs. What's in that report?
So Goldman last week talking about the fact that ICOs for early stage angel and seed financing now outpacing traditional VCs. There's two landmark things here. One is just the sheer volume and how quickly this financing mechanism overtook traditional VCs. And two, just the fact that Goldman is talking about this now as a matter of regular course and updates in their research is meaningful and significant.
Stan, did they mention how much money has been raised in ICOs up until now?
So last week we were at about 1.8 billion. Now we're closer to 2 billion with two large sales happening. Certainly Filecoin doing a great job of getting over $250 million raised in just over a week. Now 0x raising a significant amount of money. So the pace just keeps accelerating, and many more sales on tap for the remaining few months of the year.
So $1.8 billion raised this year. If I'm correct, I think the number that was raised last year in the entire year was something like $100 million. Stan, Filecoin, what do you make of this ICO? They raised so much money. Is it a good ICO? What are they going to do with all this money?
It's an incredible and visionary platform. It's playing in the decentralized storage space. It's built a tremendous product. And it's interesting, that's a space that's actually well covered. There have been a number of other token offerings like Kucoin and Storage, which happened earlier this year. They're playing roughly in the same peer-to-peer storage space and are building similar products. In fact, from a trading perspective, what you'll notice is if you look at storage over the last 2 weeks, you see the price go up. I think it went up over 4 times because people are now looking at that as a relative value trade to Filecoin. Filecoin tokens want to be available for some time, but you can purchase storage now. And so it's interesting how this market is now taking on true kind of valuation and relative value trading dynamics.
So these guys are all playing in the decentralized storage space, or taking on the likes of a Dropbox or an Amazon in storage, and they're doing it in a decentralized way. And that's why the market's buying these guys. But $100 million token valuation for storage, isn't that a bit rich?
One of the interesting ways to think about this is you think about platforms versus protocols, right? And so what Filecoin is doing is building a protocol for everyone to use, while someone like Amazon or IBM or Microsoft Cloud, those are essentially platforms that are limited to that company's ecosystem. So the argument you make is look at how large the total addressable cloud market is, and that's what Filecoin is attacking and disrupting. And so how much more can you put to work in a broad space like that? And so that's why raising hundreds of millions, while it's a large headline number, it could actually make sense given the company's growth plans.
Stan, there are so many ICOs happening every single day. Can you help our viewers by giving us some guidelines as to what to look for before investing in an ICO?
Absolutely. What you want is a very strong technical team that's been close to blockchain and that's organic to this industry, and that really understands the decentralization ethos, understands blockchain, and is deep in crypto. You want projects that try to capture big ideas, projects that are protocols that will change the way we do or attack a certain problem. The way Bitcoin is a protocol that's focused on storing value. The way Ethereum is becoming a protocol whose use case is around fundraising. The way Filecoin is a protocol around decentralized storage. You want ideas that are that big. You want a token that has a clear, organic, and native use in that system. And you want all of this put together by not just the management team that's capable of executing, but also a strong board of advisors and an existing product that's close to testnet production quality that's already out there, not just an early stage idea or a white paper, but something that's already been built over a number of months or years.
If you're an adrenaline junkie and need very little sleep, this next segment may be just for you. We're going to interview our favorite trader, Harry Year, who's based in Vancouver in Canada, to give us a little bit of insight into the life of a cryptocurrency trader. Harry, thanks for joining us. I see a whole lot of screens behind you. What are you watching in all of those screens?
So on these screens behind me in particular, we're looking at Bitcoin, and specifically for Bitcoin, we're looking at the time periods right now that kind of tell us to determine whether or not Bitcoin is bullish longer term. So we take a look at 4 different time periods. We use a little bit of technical analysis, and when we're trading daily, we look at order volumes because we're market makers, so we're constantly buying and selling Bitcoin.
And Harry, generally in a trading day, how many hours do you trade for? Because the markets are open for 24 hours. Surely you don't trade or stay up for 24 hours.
I don't stay up for 24 hours, but we do have a 24/7 trading desk. We trade 366 days a year. So cryptocurrency is one of those things that's extremely unique compared to even the traditional currency markets that close on Fridays and opens on Sundays. Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, the markets continuously trade and never stop. So we're one of the only firms on the planet that pretty much trade around the clock every single day.
What's caught your attention?
Definitely the biggest trade of the last week is Bitcoin by far. We've seen pretty monster moves up 30%. Other ones that we trade regularly also are Ethereum. And as we mentioned earlier, on some of the ICOs, one of the ones that's picking up steam is Civic. And we've also been trading EOS pretty regularly.
Harry, there's been a lot of action on the Neo token. Have you guys entered? Are you guys buying the Neo token?
So Neo originally was called Ant Shares, and we have been trading in and out of it a little bit. However, because it's relatively illiquid, we haven't been trading it as much. However, this one's monster gains from pennies to now it's trading at $47, as it's known as the Ethereum of China. So definitely a lot of interest from our clients.
Are you still a Litecoin buyer?
If you were to use the gold and silver analogy in the cryptocurrency world, Bitcoin is gold and Litecoin is silver. So Litecoin's actually had a pretty amazing run this year. It did an ICO this year. It launched probably around 4 years ago by Charlie Lee, who's an ex-employee at Google, also employee at Coinbase. And the beauty of Litecoin is that it uses the exact same code base as Bitcoin. It's almost kind of like a development staging ground for Bitcoin. So a lot of things that happened this year, such as segregated witness that's being deployed on the Bitcoin blockchain, they tested it on Litecoin first. And Litecoin's actually had an amazing run from $5 all the way up to $45, up all the way up to $55. So the price level really to watch for right now is 55.
Are you guys still buying Bitcoin at over $4,000?
Absolutely. We started scaling back into the position at around 2,850, 3,000, 3,500, 3,700. we weren't expecting such a massive run up to 4,000, but there's just a huge amount of momentum that's happened because post Bitcoin hard fork with a Bitcoin Cash distribution and hard fork split, what's actually happened is the amount of Bitcoin that's going up in circulation that's being traded, that we're seeing. There's a lot more people now trading Bitcoin than before, just because the price is going up. It's just a monster rally. But as with every monster rally, expect some pullbacks, which we've seen over the last 2 days. But definitely buy the dips and look for the next breakout. If it hits 4,500 again, this thing will rocket up to 5,000. And once it hits 5,000, expect this thing to move out to 10,000 very quickly, just because the momentum on this thing is huge right now. The exponential moving average is very bullish. So if you're shorting Bitcoin right now, you got a lot of balls to short Bitcoin. I mean, we wouldn't do it, or if you do it for an extremely short period of time and make sure that you're ready to cover, because we've seen some massive short squeezes.
2 tokens or 2 currencies that you're going to be watching for the next week that you think are going to be going up. 2 names, that's it.
Definitely Bitcoin and Civic, those 2.
It's been an absolutely amazing show after an absolutely amazing week on the crypto markets. I'm going to be available on Twitter for the next hour to answer any questions that you may have on cryptocurrency. You can look me up on @CryptoManRun. Until next week, happy trading.